The Milwaukee Bucks. Being a Milwaukee Bucks fan right now, I can imagine it's not the most fun. Doc Rivers. We gotta start with the doctor. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Fresh Cut. He got caught slipping in his Twitter likes last year. If you know, you know. A lot of people don't understand why the Bucks hired him. And neither did he. The Doc Rivers quote machine never ceases to disappoint. We had some guys here, some guys in Cabo. He had a quote along the lines of, "Feels like I'm the only one who cares when we lose." He throws the travel crew under the bus. First, the equipment manager was under fire. These guys can do anything but take accountability. You're really gonna do this to the travel crew? How much does your bus driver make? You're gonna throw your bus driver under the bus. Was he okay with that? Did you go over that with him first? I mean, you've been in this league, you've played in this league, you've been a significant player on a significant team, a significant coach on multiple significant teams in the NBA. How long have you been doing press? Do you understand professionalism and what you're supposed to do? You know shit gets hard. Maybe he's just tired of all this drama and chaos surrounding him, but it's kind of self-inflicted. You decide to take these jobs and you can't handle it, and you're gonna blame the travel crew. I mean, you just can't make this shit up. The Doc Rivers experience, it's been an interesting one for the last 10 years or so. I mean, ever since the classic 3-1 choke to Josh Smith and company, not being able to crack the conference finals with one of the most loaded basketball teams, the 2010s, I could have sworn this team would be a championship team. They didn't even make the conference finals. Now, yeah, a lot of that has to do with your best player was incredibly injury prone, which was a reoccurring theme. You coach Chris Paul, Kawhi, Joel Embiid. 3 amazing players, 3 guys that are notorious for falling apart. And for the sake of Chris Paul and Joel Embiid, definitely 2 guys that have that playoff choker reputation that has been etched in stone. So you come back with this next iteration of the Clippers, you develop that same reputation, a team that should have been making the finals, should have been competing for championships. Kawhi on the tail of finals MVP, and this is a great team around him. You get the bubble, 3-1 choke. You've now done it twice, first ever, making history. And no luck in Philly, of course. I could have told you mixing Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Doc Rivers together was not the recipe for success, and then adding in James Harden for Ben Simmons. At that point, you have the holy trinity of playoff choker reputations. He's a part of that. Maybe he's not the entire reason why any of those individual teams fell apart or underachieved. That being said, it's happened again and again and again, and you just can't escape the reality of the situation. And that 08 ring with the Celtics is ancient history. I mean, that's where you get all your credibility from as a head coach and the success of that team. But apparently it isn't ancient enough history because he gets this job. Coach a team with championship aspirations, and the Bucks, they're now 15-15. We have a big enough sample size to really see that this isn't working out the way that it should be. 15-15 with Doc Rivers. Comparatively, Adrian Griffin, the guy they fired, 30-13 was the Bucks team. Pretty good record, you know? And so I have a theory about Doc Rivers and why he keeps getting jobs. People are wondering, why do teams keep hiring this guy? He doesn't even know why he's getting hired. He was enjoying retirement, supposedly, but not enough to not take this job. And the truth about Doc Rivers, he's a player's coach. He's a guy that he's easy to play for. He lets the stars kind of do their thing and be themselves and be comfortable. Listen, I have an idea that Giannis is calling the shots of what goes on with a coaching staff and just general personnel moves. This is the guy that you prioritize your organization around. And it is the responsibility of the front office to do what he wants. And so Doc Rivers, he's a guy that players know. You know, he's not going to be too hard on us. He's not going to change a bunch of stuff and make things too complicated. But unfortunately, that's not what wins championships. You might need a little hard nose. You might need a little adversity, you know, growing with the coach and developing a real tenacity and having a more complicated relationship than just a guy that's going to be easy. I mean, that's not what wins championships. And the Bucks are not historically the flip the switch, lock-in team in the playoffs. They did win the finals as a 3 seed once. Outside of that, they've lost in the first round, they've lost in the second round as a 1 seed, both times to the Miami Heat. To only make the finals once during the Giannis, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez era, it's a little disappointing, a little bit. Giannis is a guy that he's a perennial MVP candidate. He's top 2 player in the world, you know? And they've only broken through 1 time. And now he's dealing with the hamstring. Hamstrings are not something to play with. So the Bucks aren't locked into this 2 seed. The Knicks have now fallen down to 5. The Cavs are sliding though, so they had a brutal loss last night in Phoenix. It's a lot of just general dysfunction within the Eastern Conference and that like 2 through 5 and teams jockeying for position. Nobody really wants to win all these games, especially not the Bucks, who are just falling apart right now. This is a very fragile team. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of depth. They need everybody. And that's just the opposite of an advantageous trait. As far as a playoff basketball team, you need guys ready to come in that might not know that they're going to play a lot, but have to play a lot. Guys get hurt. They get banged up. They can't play 40 minutes every game. It's a rare trait that all your guys are going to stay completely healthy through an entire playoff run. This team still has championship expectations. Even if it looks totally bleak right now, they probably enter the playoffs as a 2 seed. Giannis is playing. If Giannis is on the court, Dame Lillard is on the court, that duo should be able to be as good as any duo in the league. And they're going to need them to be. But you look at this roster, up and down, the guys that have been with this team for a while, a lot of mileage, a lot of age, no bench. This team's out of rhythm. And the age thing applies to a few players, a few key players on this team, none more so than Brook Lopez, who, this guy he's literally a year removed from all defense first team, competing for the defensive player of the year last year. I think he was second in voting. Guy looks like he's aged 5 years in one off season. I, for one, find it very difficult to imagine this man playing 30 to 40 minutes per game in the playoffs. He's done it many a time, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but it doesn't look good. And speaking of age, Dame obviously has not had the best season for his standards. It's been somewhat of a disappointment. Still an all-star, but he's notably less explosive, less dominant as a scorer, and surely a brand new team, brand new system. He's got to adapt to that and adjust. But it's April. Dame is often a second half of the season guy. I mean, he takes a couple months, he ramps up, and by the time we're in February, March, you know, he's 30 points per game. He's Dame. But it's April, and he's missing games, but he really hasn't rounded out into shape the way that I thought he would. Chris Middleton. He actually is playing right now, but you just don't hear about it because he's just not the significant contributor that he's been in the past. He's older. He's been through a lot of injury stuff, and they needed big games out of Chris Middleton in the playoffs to win that championship. He's just not the same player. So yeah, you have Dame now to get scoring from, and obviously it's going to be a lot on his shoulders, but Chris Middleton's a guy you need to be a contributor to, and it's just hard to know what you're going to get from him night in, night out, especially when we get to the playoffs. What kind of games are we going to be seeing from him? How is he going to be able to guard? And so it all just comes back on Giannis to drag this team to the finish line. This has been the problem with this team all year. This is the guy that you're putting the entire burden of the franchise on his shoulders, and now he's starting to fall apart and deal with his own health stuff, and with that, it's just so many red flags. So many. And you're going to trust Doc Rivers to be the magic man to put this all together at the end of the day. It literally has to come down to Dame and Giannis being the best duo in the league in order for this team to win a championship, which it feels like it would be a miracle, it feels like, for this team to break through. They're picking the wrong time to fall off the rails, that's for sure.